Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to show you how you can make your programs repeat themselves. I'm going to introduce three kinds of loops in Java: the while loop, the for loop, which is really just a while loop in disguise, and the do while loop, which is really just an upside down while loop. Let me show you. Let's open up BlueJ and start a new project. I'm going to call it Decisions. And then I'm going to make a new class and call it Loopy. And let me write a description here. And this is probably going to be the first version. Let's get rid of all this extra stuff in here and create a little program. Okay, let's compile this program and run it. As you can tell, it prints out start, then 0, and then end. Now I'm going to make exactly one change to this program and see what happens. I'm going to replace the word if with the word while. Now let's compile and run it again. And now you can tell that the output changed, so it prints out start, 0, 1, 2, and end. So what's going on here is that this while loop repeats the contents here. You can consider a while loop a repeating if statement. So as the program enters into here, it executes these two lines, but instead of exiting down to the next line, it returns back up to the while loop and reevaluates this condition. Let me show you in the debugger. Put a breakpoint right here and run the program. Here's where I is introduced and set to 0. And since I is less than 3, we're going to go into the while loop just as if it was an if statement. It's going to print out the first line, or the first value. It's going to increase I with 1, and then go back to the while statement and evaluate the condition again. And it's going to continue doing that until this condition is no longer true. And since I is now 3, it is no longer true, and we're going to exit the while loop and continue with the statement afterwards, as you can see. So a while loop is really just an if statement that repeats. Java also has another kind of loop. It's called a for loop. And a for loop is just a while loop in disguise, but sometimes it's easier to read and understand. Let me show you. I'm going to rewrite the while loop that we have into a for loop, copying each element of the while loop into the for loop. First, I'm going to create an empty for loop. We're going to start with this. then we're going to take the condition and put it up here. And then we're going to take the update and put it up here. And then the contents is going to be just this line. This section and this section of the code does exactly the same. Let me show you in the debugger. So here's the first line, and I'm going to single step through this. This is where I is introduced and printed out the first time. Then we go back, change the value of I, and then evaluate that against this condition. And print that out. Change the value of I, evaluate against this condition. So far so good. Now something's going to happen. This time I is going to be increased by 1 and then evaluate against this expression. And since that expression is no longer true, we're going to exit the for loop. And that is pretty much all there is to for loops. Finally, in Java, we have the do-while loop. The ordinary while loop is often called a pre-test or a none or more times loop. The do-while loop is a post-test or a one or more times loop or a at least once loop. Let me show you. I've gone back to the original while loop here, and I'm going to add another loop, a do-while loop. It looks like this. Now what's going to happen now is that after we finish the while loop, we're going to go into the do-while loop and loop around. Let me show you. So we start out with start and initialize I to 0. And since I is less than 3, we're going to go into the while loop. And now we're going to go into the do-while loop. You'll notice that there was no test before we entered into the loop. So let's see what happens. Subtract 1 and then print out I. And now we're going to repeat that for as long as I is bigger than 0. Let's see what happens. Now I is 0, and we exit the loop. Now let me show you one more detail on this. Let's make I equal to 3. And run the program again. Now that I is 3, we will not go into the while loop because this condition is false. However, we will always go into the do while loop and continue until the exit condition is satisfied. Like this. And that is pretty much all there is to do while loops in Java.